Sarvebhyah Namaskaraः. Good evening, everyone. As you're aware, this is a short discourse on Upadesha Saram by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Before we begin, let us take the blessings of our Guru and, of course, of Mata Saraswati, the goddess of not just knowledge, even speech. I won't be able to speak a word without her grace. So, सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् भद्राकल्याणि नमो नित्यं सरस्वत्यै नमो नमः वेदवेदाङ्गवेदान्त विद्यास्थानेभ्य एव च ब्रह्मस्वरूपपरमा ज्योतिरूपा सनातनी सर्वविद्यादिदेवीया तस्यै वाण्यै नमो नमः. Yes, so I was talking about Upadesha Saram. It's written by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, the sage of Arunachala. I would have loved to speak a little about Ramana Maharshi, his life biography in general, but since I have to work within a time frame, I will start with Upadesha Saram directly. So if you look at the structure of Upadesha Saram, right, it has around 30 verses. So you must be well aware of the 4 paths recognized in spirituality that takes towards liberation. They are Karma Yoga, the path of action; Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion; then Ashtanga Yoga, Raja Yoga, the path of meditation and yoga; and then of course Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. So if you see Upadesha Saram, around the first 3 verses are on Karma Yoga. Then the next 5 are regarding Bhakti Yoga. Then after that, there's one verse which generally talks about the goals of all these paths in general. And then around 6 or 7 verses are on Ashtanga Yoga, and the rest are on Jnana Yoga. So let's see what Ramana Maharshi has to say. We begin with Karma Yoga. Ramana Maharshi writes, Kartraragneya prapyate phalam karma kim param karma tajjadam kriti mahodadhau patana karanam phalam ashashvatam gati nirodhakam. So he writes, he's saying Kartraragneya prapyate phalam. He's saying by the will or by the grace of God, we get the results of our action or results of our work. So, if you generally see Karma Yoga, what is Karma Yoga saying? Swami Vivekananda puts it very beautifully in his poem, The Song of the Sannyasam. He who sows shall reap, the cause shall have a sure effect, good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. Very simple. So, we know that if we do good actions, we get good results, and that's why, we are always told, ki do good karma, do good actions. But I'll tell you what is interesting. The next line which Ramana Maharshi is saying, he's saying karma kim param. Is action then the ultimate goal? And this is a very interesting question because we all assume it is, because we are told do good work, you get good results. That's how it should be. So then why is Ramana Maharshi asking karma kim param? Think about it. Say me studying hard, that's action or that's work. And then say me getting good grades or becoming the topper is the result. What's the problem with that? Or say I work really hard and I get a promotion. Why can't that be an ultimate goal? Or say, so generally if you see traditionally, karma kanda referred to a ritualistic approach of action where you did sacrifices to get results. So say I perform a yajna for a son and I even get a son. Why can't karma be the ultimate goal of human life? So Ramana Maharshi says, karma tajjadam kriti mahodadav patana karanam phalam ashashvatam. One thing he points out, is that phalam ashashvatam, that the results of action are temporary. I mean, if you think about it, like, why are we doing action or work in the first place? We think it gives us some kind of fulfillment that we are looking for, that appreciation from society, or that wealth, or the fame, or having a good family, or having like a good husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, good relations. It's all of it all sort of completes us or gives us fulfillment, and that's why we are after these things. That's the only reason, because we think it gives us that sense of completeness. However, what Ramana Maharshi is pointing out here is that the problem with these results are that they are temporary. They cannot give the permanent fulfillment we are after. Like, I mean, what are the examples I was talking about? Yeah, about grades. Like, you top 10 standard, then next year someone else does, and you need to again work hard for their 11th and 12th. So, I mean, it's not here to stay. Or not just results. Think about anything. Your husband or your wife, how much ever loyal they may be, how much ever wealth you may have, how meritorious children, all of them are not here to stay. Like, you can't sugarcoat reality. You don't have a guarantee you are alive tomorrow. What makes you think that whatever your family members or whoever you like are going to be there? And the same applies to wealth, to fame, to this reminds me of one of the dohas by Kabir, or one of the saints in Kabir tradition. Like, I mean, we know that they are temporary, okay? Like, it is something very obvious, and yet we fail to keep that in mind in when we do anything in our life. So, and if you see the perspective of these saints who have actually realized this, it's so beautiful. Saying this, Kabir Das, or one of the saints, he puts, yes, सख्त था महाराज जिनका मुल्कों में राज, जिन घर झूलता हाथी, जिन घर झूलता हाथी, जैसे ओसरा मोती, झोंका पवन का लग जाए, झपका धूल हो जाए. He's just saying it just takes a slight breeze to just turn this into dust, turn these results into dust. So yeah, all these what we tend to chase is basically dust, from Kabir's perspective, if we see. But against this is a very valid argument which you might give. Say, yes, we get it. Things are temporary. We are not asking for some everlasting relationships or everlasting wealth. We know they are temporary, but it's okay. We will enjoy the temporary things. It's like, what's my favorite sweet? Think of your favorite sweet. Say motichur colored. We don't want an everlasting motichur colored. We are happy with that is temporary. Then we'll eat another one. That's how it works. And that's actually a very valid argument, and that is what is addressed by Ramana Maharshi next when he says, Kriti Mahodadhau Patana Karanam. So, what he's saying is, all right, your results are temporary. So then, as soon as one result, you finish enjoying one, then you work hard for another, and when that's over, you do it again. So it's like eating one motichur colored after the other. But I'll tell you the problem with this is, I mean, if you have studied economics anytime, you would have heard of this law of diminishing marginal utility. What the law basically says is that as you consume more and more of a product, the utility derived from it reduces. In the sense, yes, after you have eaten 3 or 4 laddus, you still work hard to get the fifth and enjoy it, because you know that the fifth will give you some enjoyment. But after you have eaten 100, the 101st is not really giving you any fulfillment, any contentment, or whatever that you're looking for, that enjoyment. You're not getting it. So Ramana Maharshi says, Kriti Mahodadhau Patana Karanam Halam Ashashvatam. And what's the why is this happening? So one is, he says, karma tat jadam, action is inert. What does he mean by action is inert? Your actions are finite because it is limited by this space, by time. So how can the results of finite actions ever be infinite? It is man's nature to look for happiness, contentment, or fulfillment. But what Ramana Maharshi is saying here is that fulfillment cannot be found by the results of action because they are temporary in nature and just leads you to the trap of actions. Calls it Kriti Mahodada, an endless ocean of actions, which can't really give you that fulfillment. So what now? Okay, we get actions are can't really give us what we are looking for. So what? Do we stop doing any action then? What does Ramana Maharshi say? He says, Ishwararpitam nechaya kritam chitta shodhakam mukti sadhakam. Ishwararpitam. That action which is done as dedication to God, Ishwarar nechaya kritam. That which is performed without any expectations, that which is performed with an attitude that I am not the one performing it. Chitta shodhakam mukti sadhakam. Such action purifies the mind and leads towards liberation. So, I mean, what do we mean by liberation here? Okay, actually, I discussed this when we are discussing Jnana Yoga. It's better put there. So, he's saying, Ramana Maharshi is saying that action that we dedicate to God and that we do without expectations is what that leads to liberation. And this is, and this is something we find very popularly said in the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhumate sangotsva karmani. So, but we all, this is a popular verse that yes, don't keep any expectations when you're doing any work, so that finally when you get the result, which may or may not be in your favor, or when you lose what you already have got, you're not really disappointed, you don't face that sorrow. But if you see, karma yoga actually has a deeper meaning. So when you say nechaya kritam, he's asking you to do work with an attitude that I am not the one doing it. If you observe your own lives, we always think this body mind intellect is me and I am performing this action and I am experiencing these results. So it's like, I mean, this just becomes more with the current social media. You just need to look at WhatsApp story, Instagram stories, or WhatsApp status. Like it is, I won the medal. I cleaned my neighborhood. I proved something. I cleared some exam, or I enjoyed with my friends. What are we doing with the sense of I? Right? It's it's making us believe, we are constantly telling ourselves that this person with this body, mind, and intellect is me, and I am doing things and I am enjoying something. But when we start working with an attitude that it is for God, it is God acting through us, it is not I who is doing it, it takes us to a higher reality. Yeah. So what is this higher reality? We will get to it as we go ahead. But it's just like this, yeah. Think of a theater actor. Say the theater actor's name is John. He's playing the role of Julius Caesar. As long as he's thinking himself as Julius Caesar, he will never come to think of his original self as John. Yeah, we're doing something like that. Yeah, so this ends the Karma Yoga part of Upadesha Saram. These next few verses, which I'll be talking about, are on Bhakti Yoga. So let's see what Ramana Maharshi has to say about Bhakti Yoga. So in the verses that we see regarding Bhakti Yoga, Ramana Maharshi says, Kaya Vangmanaha Karyamuttamam Pujanam Japaha Chintanam Kramat. So he's saying that silent contemplation in the mind is superior to japa, that is softly chanting or repeating the name of God, and that is superior to uh, ritualistic puja. So he's saying kaya vangmanaha karyamuttamam pujanam japah chintanam krama. And this is again very interesting because what is the general form of devotion? We see there's this elaborate worship which is generally done through actions. There's a lot of puja, rituals, etc. But if you see, Ramana Maharshi is putting this ritualistic puja at the bottom of the superiority scale, of which is a better form of devotion. Then Ramana Maharshi says, Jagat Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Bhruk Deva Pujanam. He's saying serving the world as a worship to God is like worshipping the eight-formed God, Ashtamurti Bhruk. So, generally people think that God is something different from this world. But Ramana Maharshi is saying this world is not this world, this cosmos is nothing but God. Serving this world is nothing but a worship to God, the God with the eight forms. So, in one of the commentaries I was reading, the God with the eight forms is the five forms include the five elements: earth, air, fire, water, sky, and then you have the sun and the moon. The moon is symbolic of the satellites, and then the what is left? Eight forms, right? And then you have the individual beings, the living beings, which all this basically constitute the world. So when you say God with eight forms, serving the world is equivalent to worshipping God. That's what Ramana Maharshi is saying here. And again, this is, I mean, if we see our own experiences, we'll find people who are like extremely religious and devoted as long as they are inside the premises of a temple or they're doing the puja. The moment they come out, you find them probably abusing someone on the road. And this is such a hypocrisy because, God is literally everywhere. So why confine worship to some rituals in a temple? Serving the world is serving God. Ashtamurti Brug Deva Pujanam Uttamastavat Uchamandatah Chittajam Japadhyanam Uttamam. What is Ramana Maharshi saying? Again, he's saying that meditation Uttamastavat Uchamandatah, softly repeating the name of the God, is superior to that of saying his name loudly, and then Chittajam Japadhanam Uttam. And the repeating of the name of the God in your mind silently is even superior to that. See, what is something we are very commonly seeing, and what Ramana Maharshi is saying is that, people generally have the notion of finding a God somewhere, which is somewhere as external to oneself. But, by saying that, the most superior is something that the contemplation in the mind, Ramana Maharshi is sort of drawing towards looking into yourself and withdrawing from the external world. So, Uttamastavat Uchamandatah Chittajam Japadhyanam Uttamam Ajyadharaya Srotasa Samam Saralachintanam Viralatah Param. And then he's saying, and this contemplation which you do in your own mind, the uninterrupted contemplation is again superior to interrupted contemplation. I mean, it's the attitude of the mind to think of various objects. So it is bound to be interrupted. Like how long? Just try thinking about one thing for long. You're bound to be interrupted by some other thought. So Ramana Maharshi is saying that, he says Ajyadharaya Srota Sasanam, uninterrupted like a flowing stream of ghee. Like he's like giving a visual representation of that uninterruptedness, that flow, that the mind is not interrupted and you're really focused on God through silent contemplation. So he says, Ajyadharaya Srotasasanam Saralachintanam Viralataf Bheda Bhavanat Soham Ityasau Bhavana Bida Pavani Mad. Now, this is what he's saying now is even more interesting, because if you see any theistic religion, they have a notion of duality. However, what is Ramana Maharshi saying? Bheda Bhavanat Soham Ityasau. What are you contemplating in your mind? How are you contemplating in your mind? Soham iti, that I am he. Ramana Maharshi is saying you need to contemplate that I am he. And this is something very much beyond. See, theistic religions will tell you God is everywhere, but now we are going a step ahead. God is everywhere, God is within yourself as well. So now you are coming to the contemplation of, God is me. And I mean, initially you'll feel like this doesn't make sense, because God is like an all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient being, and I am this small, tiny individual. How can I contemplate that I am he? So a classic example given by Vedanta is that the differentiation between you and God is arising because of forms and qualities. Just like a wave and the ocean. If you see the wave, obviously the wave is very limited and small compared to the vast ocean. But when you see the true nature of the wave, what is wave essentially? It is water. What is the ocean? That too is water. So then how is the wave any different from the water? It's just of forms, qualities, and names. Essentially, both are water. Similarly, your true nature and that of God is one and the same. So Ramana Maharshi is saying, Bheda Bhavanat Soham Ityasau Bhavana Bhida Pavani Mata. Contemplate on this non-dual reality which is the same, which is you and God. भाव शून्य सत भाव सुस्थिति bhavana balat bhakti ruttama. So what Ramana Maharshi is saying here is saying that the firm abidance in one's true nature is the supreme devotion. Even if we see Adi Shankaracharya in Viveka Chudamani, he says, Moksha Karana Samagriyam Bhaktireva Gariyasi Swaswarupanusandhanam Bhaktirityavidiyati. He says, what do you mean by devotion? What is the most supreme devotion? It is Swaswarupanusandhanam. Realizing one's own true nature and having that attitude that I am he or he is me. Where you see and you realize that the essential nature of yourself, which is this limited individual, and that of God, who is the entire cosmos, is actually one reality. So that brings us to the end of Bhakti Yoga. And before Ramana Maharshi goes to Ashtanga Yoga, he says one verse, and where he says, so what is the goal of all these paths finally? He says, Hritstale manasvastata kriya bhakti yoga bodhasya nishchitam. Hritstale mana, the abidance of the mind in the heart, and by heart he means one's true nature, the real essence of the self. Hritstale manasvastata kriya bhakti yoga bodhasya nishchitam. This abidance in one's true nature is the goal of all these paths, of the path of devotion, bhakti yoga, the path of karma, the path of action, jnana yoga, the path of knowledge, and ashtanga yoga, the path of meditation. So the verses now we are going to be discussing are regarding ashtanga yoga, the path of meditation or yoga, or it's also popularly known as Raja Yoga. So, Vayurodhanat liyate manah jalapakshivat rodha sadhanam. Ramana Maharshi is saying, by the restraint of the breath, the mind gets absorbed. So if you see our own ancient scriptures like the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, there are many breathing techniques that help control the mind. And I mean, even if you'll find even modern research studies as well, that tell you the connection between the mind and the breath. So Ramana Maharshi is saying, by restraining the mind, by restraining the breath, you control the mind. वायुरोधनात् लीयते मनः जालपक्षिवत् रोधसाधनं चित्तवायवाहश्चित्क्रियायुताः शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलकः. He's saying the mind, which is like the source of knowledge, and your breath. I won't even say breath. It's like the vital airs. The Sanskrit word for it is actually prana, the energizing force. You can call it vital airs or breath, but I mean, there's no exact word for it. It's called prana. So the mind, which is the source of knowledge, and the vital airs, that is the source of the activizing of all activity of the body. Shakhayordvayi Shakti Mulakaha. They are two branches of the same single source. So let's see what is this same single source. चित्तवायवाहस् चित्क्रियायुता शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलकः लयविनाशने उभयरोधने लयगतिं पुनर्भवति नोमृतं प्राणबन्धनात् लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तना नाशमेत्यदः. Okay, so what Ramana Maharshi is saying here is, okay, to understand this, let's see two terms. One is manolaya and one is manonasha. Manolaya means absorption of the mind, and manonasha is destruction of the mind. Okay, and before that, by destruction of the mind, I mean, I'm sure all of you agree that the brain and the mind are two separate things. They're not the same thing. I mean, confirm it with any biology or psychology geek. They'll tell you that mind and brain are separate. So when I'm saying destruction of the mind, please don't imagine some brain blasting or something like that. It's not like that. So what do you mean by absorption of the mind? So think of the mind contemplating on any object. Say, not even object, but let's think of God. Say my mind is contemplating on Krishna. So the mind is silently repeating Krishna, 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 and there's an image of this bright blue guy with a flute in my mind, and the mind is not aware of anything else but this. This is absorption of the mind. However, now think that your mind is not thinking at all. As in, there are no thoughts, there is no object the mind is contemplating on. Then what is left of the mind? Like, what is the mind finally? It's like a bunch of thoughts. And if you are not thinking, there are no thoughts, then what is left of the mind? There is no mind. That's what we mean here when we say destruction of the mind. Because as long as the mind is contemplating on an object, there are thoughts, there's the mind. But when there is no thought at all, then what is left? But now there's no mind. But the mind kept telling you that you are this. It's the mind that tells you, I am this body, mind, intellect. But now there's no mind. There's no thoughts, there is no mind, but you are still there. The notion, the sense of I is still there. That Ramana Maharshi is saying is your real self. That which is aware that there is no mind. Who is aware that there is no mind any longer? That is the real you, is what Ramana Maharshi is saying. Prana bandhanat leena manasam eka chintana nashametyadaha. When you contemplate on this one reality, you realize that your mind is destroyed. nashametyadaha. And this notion that I, that is aware of the mind, of the body, that is the real you. I mean, think about it. See, your mind is not you, in the sense that you are experiencing your mind. The mind is not experiencing you. Hope you'll agree. Right? And again, the body, you are experiencing the body. It's not the otherwise. And so what am I saying when I say you? You is that consciousness or that awareness. I mean, think about it. Like, see, body is just a bunch of cells, okay? Is the body in your awareness or consciousness, or is the consciousness or awareness in your body? Obviously, the body is in your awareness, right? Or consciousness. That's what Ramana Maharshi is saying, that this consciousness is the real you. So, and mind it, this consciousness is not like an object that you can contemplate on. It is not an object of perception. It is the subject. It is the experience. It is that which is aware of everything. So Ramana Maharshi is saying, Pranabandhana Dinamanasam Ekachintana Nashametyadaha Nashtamanasau Utkrishta Yoginaha Krityamastikim Swastikim Yadaha. So Ramana Maharshi is saying, for someone who has realized this truth, that I am consciousness, I am not this mind, body, or intellect, this complex which I assume I was, but no, I am this consciousness. One who has realized it, the yogi who has realized it, Krityamastikim, what is left for him to do? In the sense that, as we discussed, why are people working? Because they think they'll get some sense of fulfillment out of the action or results they're doing. But someone who is already fulfilled, who knows his true self, who knows himself to be complete, what is left for him to do? Krishna Yogina Krityamastikim Swastikim Yataha Drishyavaritam Chittamatmanaha Chitva Darshanam Tattva Darshanam. When the mind realizes that, by restraint of the mind and breath, you realize that your true nature is actually that of consciousness, that is Tattva Darshanam, that is the realization of the self. And okay, and here they're saying Drishya Varitam, this is the vision of reality. So what do I mean by vision here? Okay, the word vision is actually used metaphorically, because see, when we say vision, we need a seer and a seen. Seer is the subject who sees, and the seen is the object that is seen. However, if you see the consciousness is not an object that you can perceive or that you can see. It is the experience itself. It's the seer. So when you're saying vision, it is a metaphorical use, because when you realize the seer, you realize that the seer is actually consciousness or awareness, and that is you. So that is the vision of reality. That's what Ramana Maharshi is saying. And Manonasha, which Ramana Maharshi discussed here, destruction of the mind, it actually has more another meaning actually that we will discuss when we're going to come to Jnana Yoga. We are at Jnana Yoga now. This has brought us to Jnana Yoga. We end Ashtanga Yoga. So let's see. I mean, like, even before we move on to Jnana Yoga, just try this. Just close your eyes. Make sure there's complete silence, and don't think of anything. Make sure there are no thoughts in your head. This complete silence. Now, do you still exist? Forget your body. Your mind is anyways not there because there are no thoughts in your head. Your intellect is also shut down. But are you still there? Yes, you are, because you are not the body, mind, or intellect. You are that which is aware of all these three things. You say, my body, my mind, my intellect. Whose body? Whose intellect? It is you. Consciousness. That's your real self. Yes. Yeah, so we always think we are this limited individual, we are limited to this body, this mind, this intellect. But no, we are beyond it. We are that which perceives all this. Right. So, and even if you think of it, right, see, your true self, it is unchanging. It's remaining constant. But any object of perception that it is aware of is something impermanent that keeps changing. Even if you see, look at your own mind or body, they keep changing. Your body is prone to decay, your thoughts come and go, the mind also keeps changing. But that which is aware of it is unchanging. And that's the real you. Okay, so that was Ashtanga Yoga. Now we are coming to Jnana Yoga. Okay, so Jnana Yoga is, say, the most important one. Like, even if you didn't listen to anything till now, listen from now on, because like this is the most important. In Viveka Chudamani, Adi Shankaracharya writes, Vadantu Shastrani yajantu devan kurvantu karmani bhajantu devataha Atmaikya bodhena vina vimuktir na siddhyati brahma shadantarebi. Adi Shankaracharya is saying, quote all the scriptures you want, do how many ever sacrifices for the gods, do how much ever work or actions, or pray, or express your devotion, how much ever you want to the gods, but you will never attain liberation without the knowledge of the self. Atmaikya bodhena vina vimuktir. So, yeah, the Jnana Yoga, its idea is very simple. You are limited, you feel that you are the limited individual of this body, mind, intellect because of ignorance. The only way to make ignorance go is knowledge. So, Jnana Yoga is known as the path of knowledge. Without Jnana Yoga, everything else is pointless. I mean, not pointless like that, but I mean, how shall I say it? Like, Jnana Yoga is the most important one. Like, without Jnana Yoga, there's no way you can realize how should I say it. Okay, see, when we go trekking, we do, we usually spend a day on acclimatization. Acclimatization as in we stay at a higher altitude and make your body get used to it so that the next day you can climb the summit. So all these Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, they are just like acclimatization. And climbing the summit is Jnana Yoga. So it becomes easier for you to climb the summit, or it makes it easier for you to climb the summit if you are acclimatized. But say you are acclimatized and you don't climb the summit at all, your acclimatization is pointless. So yeah, Jnana Yoga is like climbing the summit. In Jnana Yoga, what is Ramana Maharshi saying? Manasam tu kim margane krute naiva manasam marga arjavat. He's saying manasam tu kim. So then what is the mind? Manasam tu kim margane krute. When we inquire as to what is the mind, manasam tu kim margane krite naiva manasam marga arjavat. Saying naiva manasam. There is nothing real called the mind. So what does he mean by there is nothing real called the mind? So what would you call as something real? Real is something that would be there in the past, present, and the future. That will always be there. What is something we will call as unreal? Unreal is something that was never there, as in it was not there in the past, not there currently, will not be there in the future. But now let's look at the mind. Is it real or unreal? Is mind always there? Not really, because we just saw that we can shut down our mind. So does it mean that the mind was never there? Not really. We have experienced the mind. So then the mind is neither real, neither unreal. Then what is the mind? And Vedanta would say that the mind is mithya, an illusion. So what is an illusion? The very classic example that Vedanta gives is of the rope and the snake. Say if you mistake a rope to be a snake, the snake is an illusion of the rope. So does it mean that the snake is real? Not really. Is it unreal? No, you are experiencing it. So what is it finally? It is mithya, an illusion. It is adhyasa, a superimposition. Similarly, your mind is not something real, it is just an illusion. So the other kind of manonasha I was talking about, one is yes, that there are no thoughts, so there is no mind. That is one kind of destruction of the mind. The other deeper meaning of the term destruction of the mind or manonasha means that you realize that your mind is not something real, it's just an illusion. So Ramana Maharshi says that the mind is just an illusion, not a real thing. So manasam tu kim margane krite naiva manasam marga arjavat vrittayastvaham vrittimashritah vrittayor mano vidyaham manah. Okay. Ramana Maharshi is saying something very interesting here. He's saying, take any thought, take the example of any thought, like say, okay, this is a laptop, that's a thought. So if you see the real form of any thought actually means this. When I say this is a laptop, it intrinsically means I know that this is a laptop. So any thought can be seen as comprising of these two thoughts. Vrityaham, the I thought, and the thought of the object. So I know, and this is a laptop. There are two thoughts. Okay, and here the word is used as vritti. So vritti does not mean only thoughts, actually it means more. It means, you can say it like traits or attributes. But I mean, there's no exact English word for it, but we'll take it as thoughts for now. So any thought in your mind, think of it like literally any thought, it can be divided into the thought of the object and the thought of the I thought. So if you see, so I was saying, I know this laptop. Now the thought of the object keeps changing and need not be constant, as in either that now instead of the laptop, I can start thinking about an apple, or this laptop may break. So it's something which is not constant, but the I know, the I thought remains constant. This Ramana Maharshi is bringing to our attention to show that the thought of any object is dependent on this I thought, and this I thought is the ego, which makes you believe that you are this body, mind, and intellect. And then Ramana Maharshi is saying ahamayam kuto bhavati chinvatah aipatatyaham nija vicharan. Ahamayam kuto. So from where is this I thought arising? Where is this I thought coming? Bhavati chinmatah aipatatyaham nija vicharanam. When you inquire as to from where is this I thought coming, that is when all the thoughts stop, because I thought is also a thought. But when that thought goes, you go to the source, where the I thought has gone, but the notion of I remains. That I, which is nothing other than consciousness, is the real you. So, ahamayam kuto bhavati chinmatah aipatatyaham nija vicharanam ahaminashabhajyahamahantaya spurati hrit paramapurna sat. So when you inquire as to where is this I thought arising from, this your true nature or your true self, which is consciousness, shines forth on its own. Spurati hrit paramapurna sat. So Ramana Maharshi is saying that this consciousness, it is not dependent. So the object thought was dependent on the I thought. The I thought was dependent on your consciousness. But the consciousness is not dependent on anything. It shines forth on its own. He's saying Spurati Hrit Swayam. And like when we are talking about either destruction of the mind or falsity of the mind, we don't mean like the literal destruction of your body, mind, or intellect. What is destroyed is the false notion that I am this body, mind, or intellect, because you come to realize your real self. So when we talk about the destruction of the ego or the destruction of the mind, that's what we mean. Then Ramana Maharshi says, Idamaham pada bhikkyamanvaham ahamilina pyalaya sattaya. So in this verse, he's telling us that the I or the ego, the real self, which is consciousness or awareness, and the I associated with the cosmos or the universe is one and the same. It is that essential one reality, which is consciousness or awareness. Then Ramana Maharshi says, Vigrahendriya pranaditamaha nahameka sat tad jadam yasat. He says, Na Vigrahendriya. So Vigraha is referring, by saying Vigraha is referring to the body. Vigraha Indriya. Indriya is senses. Pranadhi Tamaha. Prana is breath. Dhi is intellect. Tamaha is blankness or darkness. He's saying, I am not any of this. Na Vigrahendriya Pranadhi Tamaha. Eka Sat Tat Jadam Yasat. So why am I not all these things? He says Tat Jadam. All these are inert. Then who am I? Naham ekasat. I am that reality. Aham ekasat. So I mean, if you see this, when he's saying Vigrahendriya Pranaditamaha, when he's saying I am not this body, intellect, breath, this is very similar to the Taittiriya Upanishad. Yes. So the Taittiriya Upanishad talks about, known for its Panchakosha Viveka, the knowledge obtained through the 5 sheets. So if you see what Ramana Maharshi is saying here is very similar to it. So I mean, I'll say very briefly what this Panchakosha Viveka is. To be clear, I'll be doing no justice to it because I'm just putting it very, very briefly. So it's like first, so the 5 sheets or the 5 koshas they talk about is, first one is the Annamaya kosha or the sheet made of food. So first, when you are asked, who are you? You just look at yourself, you look at the body, and then you say, this is me. But what is the body? Finally, it is just a bunch of cells. So you contemplate inwards. Then you realize, no, the body is actually activated by something else, a vital airs and energizing force. This sheath is known as the Pranamaya kosha or the sheath of breath. You say, okay, I'm not the body, I'm something more within, and I am this sheath of breath. And then, so then how is this sheath of breath actually operating? When you go inward in your experience, what do you realize next? You realize the mind. This mind is known as the Manomaya kosha. You feel that yes, it's because of the mind, this body and the breath is functioning, so I have to be the mind. But again, you contemplate inwards. Then you realize, no, there is something else that is aware of the mind. That is actually the intellect. So this intellect, this sheath is known as the Vijnanamaya kosha. So, but again, we don't end there. We are still contemplating further. We shut down the intellect also now, along with the mind. What do we experience? We experience a blankness, a stillness. This is known as the Anandamaya kosha. So are you then this blankness or stillness? No. You are that who is aware of this blankness or stillness, and that is nothing but consciousness or awareness. So that is the real you. So when Ramana Maharshi is saying Vigrahendriya Pranadhitamaha Nahamekasat Tajjadam Yasat, this is what he means. Then he says Sattva Bhasika Chitva Vetara Sattaya Hichit Chittaya Hyaham. So he says this consciousness is nothing but existence. And this existence I am. So Ramana Maharshi is saying that my true reality or my true nature is consciousness, awareness, existence. Satchidananda, whose true nature is happiness, bliss. And that is the real me. Then Ramana Maharshi says, Isha Jivayor Veshadhi Bhida Sat Svabhavato Vastu Kevalam. Isha Jivayor. Isha is God, Jiva is the individual. The difference between God and individual is just of Vesha, of forms. The difference between God and the individual is just of forms and qualities. Veshahanatah swatma darshanam, Isha darshanam swatma rupatah. When you are stripped of these forms, when you are stripped of these forms and qualities, you perceive your real self, and this self-realization is nothing but God realization. Isha darshanam swatma rupatah. So Ramana Maharshi is saying that finally what you say is God realization is nothing but self-realization. Atma samsthitihi swatma darshane atma nirdvayat atma nishtata. So by abiding in this non-dual self or this reality, one realizes the true nature. Jnanavarjita ajnanaheenachit jnanamastikim jnatumantaram. Okay, so Ramana Maharshi is saying that both knowledge of any object and even ignorance regarding anything comes to be known because of this self only. However, the self is free from all this. It is not dependent on all this. So, like if you want to know any object, so you generally need the knower, the known, and an instrument to know it. As in the pramata, the knower, the prameya, the known, and the pramana, the instrument through which it is known. So, say you're getting to know an object like a book. So then the knower is of course you, and the book is that's coming to be known, and the instrument of knowing is your intellect. But here what Ramana Maharshi is saying is the consciousness cannot be known by something else. It is self-known. Like you can't get to know consciousness from intellect, because intellect itself is known because of consciousness. So he's saying that this consciousness is self-revealing, self-shining. You can't use another instrument to get to know it. It is self-revealed. It's like Surya Nodak torch maker. Okay, it's like saying like you don't need a torch to see the sun because the sun is self-illuminated. So Ramana Maharshi is saying the consciousness is also something like this. And while jnana varjita ajnana hinachit, both thoughts of ignorance and knowledge are possible only because of consciousness. Consciousness is something that is independent of it and cannot be known from them. Okay. Jnana varjita ajnana hinachit jnanamasti kim jnatu mantaram kim swarupam ityatma darshane avyaya bhava purnachit sukham. Kim swarupam ityatma. What is my reality, real self? Ityatma darshane, through self-enquiry. Kim swarupam ityatma darshane avyaya bhava purnachit sukham. What do I realize by inquiring into what is my real self? I realize that my real self is avyaya, indestructible, avyaya bhava, abhava, never born, beyond birth. Avyaya bhava purnachit sukham. Apurna is complete. Purna chit sukham. Consciousness which is in the nature of happiness. Gives happiness, gives contentment, gives bliss. That is my true nature. Kim swarupam mityatma darshane avyaya bhava purna chit sukham bandha muktyati tam param sukham vindati haji vastu daivikaha. So he's saying some rare individuals realize this and are freed or liberated from bondage. But I mean, if you see a deeper meaning of this, think about it. Even liberation and bondage, just like the mind, are illusions. It is because of ignorance that you thought that you are this limited individual with this body, mind, intellect, and that you have problems, you need to, I don't know, you need to get something, or you're suffering or whatever, and obviously the suffering is of this body, mind, or intellect. So ignorance made you believe that you are this, and that's why you feel like you are in bondage. However, in reality, were you in bondage? The real self was never in bondage. It was just illusory. It's because of ignorance. Just like this, seeing the snake for a rope. Similarly, you saw yourself as this limited individual, but in reality, the real self was not in bondage at all. So if the real self is not in bondage at all, what are you liberating it from? It's self-liberated. It was always liberated. So when you say that you are liberated from bondage, they are again illusory concepts, because the real self is never really in bondage. This reminds me of one of the verses from Mandukya Karikas, written by Gaudapadacharya. Gaudapadacharya is Adi Shankaracharya's guru's guru. So Adi Shankaracharya's guru was Govinda Bhagavatpadacharya, and his guru is Gaudapadacharya. And Gaudapadacharya writes, "Na nirodho na cha utpattihi, na baddho na sadhakah, na mumukshur na vaimukta, ityesha paramartatha." He says, "Na nirodho na cha utpattihi," there is no cessation or birth of this universe. Na baddho na sadhakah, there is no one in bondage, there is no spiritual seeker trying to come out of bondage. Na mumukshur na vaimukta, there is no one who wants to be liberated, there is no liberation. There is no one who is liberated. Ityesha paramarthatha, this is the ultimate truth. So, I mean, while this sounds very far-fetched, but this is from the perspective of the realized self. That the self was just ignorance, a mistake, a superimposition. In reality, you are never in bondage, and realizing this is liberation. So yeah, this, while it's very amazing, the reality, the truth that it can be, and I mean, if you see it from the enlightened people's perspective, it's just amazing. So kim swarupam ityatma darshane avyaya bhava purna chit sukham bandha muktyatitam param sukham vindati haji vastu daivikah aham apetakam nija vibhanakam mahadidam tapo ramana vagyam. Same. Okay, we are at the climax. This is the last verse. Ramana Maharshi is saying, inquiring, the self-inquiry into who I am, who am I? Aham apetakam nija vibhanakam. Realizing her true nature. Aham apetakam nija vibhanakam mahadidam tapo ramana vagyam. This is the greatest penance, and these are the utterances of Ramana Maharshi. So, Ramana Vagyam. I mean, people believe what all can be a penance. Going to some pilgrimage, some holy site, doing some puja, singing the names of God. All this, yes, they do lead towards the path, but what is the greatest penance? The greatest penance is inquiring, who am I? And realizing it. I'm not just inquiring. Realizing who am I. So that brings us to the end of Upadesha Saram. And before I end, just 2-3 things. One thing, see, what I have spoken is extremely superficial. As in extremely superficial. If there's an endless deep ocean, I hardly touch the surface. Okay, it's like that. And if you generally see, specifically for Upadesha Saram itself, the discourses which are available, they are minimum 5 to 10 hours. Okay, and I think I just summed up the entire thing in like an hour, so you can realize how limited and superficial this whatever I have spoken is. So if you want to gain a deeper understanding, you need to listen to the actual discourses. Most of what I spoke You will find it in the commentary of Sri Pujya Swamiji Tejo Mayanandaji from Chinmay Mission. His book is available even on Amazon Kindle and of course on their website. But apart from the book, if you want to listen to the discourses, there are some amazing sources that you'll just get on YouTube. You have discourse, like these are specifically with respect to Upadesha Saram, like not Vedanta as such, just Upadesha Saram specifically. The discourse of Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati from Arsha Vidya, it's on YouTube. Then, of course, you have Swami Sarvapriyananda from Ramakrishna Mission. His is also available on YouTube, and even there's one more I saw on YouTube. Yes, Swami Pujya Swami Swarupanandaji. He's also from Chinmay Mission. So all these are, and these are deep discourses. As I said, they'll go beyond 5 to 10 hours. So I just put everything very, very briefly here. And yeah, and this Upadesha Saram, it really has a very, very nice music. It's sung very well. You can listen to it. It's really amazing. It's more nicer to listen once you know what it's telling you, what it means. And as I said, I wanted to talk a little on Ramana Maharshi's life, but I think I have already spoken for more than an hour almost. So there's a very beautiful documentary on Ramana Maharshi. I don't remember the channel. It's on YouTube. It's around 1 hour 37 minutes. You'll get it. It's really one of the most beautiful things I've ever watched. The kind of emotions it invokes. It's a very well directed documentary to know the life of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, who just left home. He left his house when he was around 14 or 16 to in search of the truth to Arunachala. It's just amazing. It's definitely a must watch. And yes, that brings us to the end of this discourse. Thank you so much for listening. I mean, as long as there are people to listen, I'll be more than happy to speak. Very grateful for this opportunity. Dhanyavadaha Shri Gurubhyo Namah.